Hi, I've done some previous videos showing the look and feel of how you connect via the web browser and the remote desktop client to the Windows 365 experience from Microsoft. I thought I'd dive behind the covers a little bit and look at some of the configuration that goes behind it. So everything starts and lives within the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center. So under Devices, we have this provisioning node for Windows 365. We get a quick glance at all the different health of the environment, whether we've got any that are busy, failing to be provisioned, that everything's all nice and healthy. The tabs along the top give us the access to the settings. So if I start across on the right on the very lightest of the sections, originally when this was launched, there was only basically one setting that we could do, and that's whether we wanted to enable the user that signs in to be a local admin or not. Now, there have been some more settings added recently, and the really good one is about actually allowing end users themselves, if you want to, or you can leave it for an admin, to be able to initiate a point-in-time restore of their cloud PC. So in essence, you get to choose how often you want to take what is in effect a checkpoint or a snapshot, and these were stored up to 10 times. So for example, if I was to choose to do a snapshot every 4 hours, I would do over a space, I'd basically be able to roll back over a space of 40 hours. So 10 times 4, 40. So for now, I'm basically going to say I just want to take a snapshot every 6 hours. It also initiates backup or snapshots for you to restore to that you cannot configure once every 7 days and 4 of them. So basically you get a weekly snapshot for a month that you can roll back to. But this just gives it a bit more granularity. So if I give this a name, so let's make it snapshots every 6 hours. I'm not going to make the user local admin, and I'm just going to assign this to the group that I use for licensing of my 8 gig VMs. And it's as simple as that. We can expect that Microsoft will probably add more settings to this in terms of the user aspect, but for now, that's basically it. Enable local admin, and what do you want your recovery points to be set as? Now, this is the important bit, and you have to do this before you configure anything else, and that's set up a connection or a network that the cloud PCs are going to sit on. Now this could be either a connection that has connectivity back into your internal network, and either ones for hybrid join devices, so therefore it can talk to your domain controllers to do the domain join piece, or it doesn't necessarily need to see your domain controllers, and it's just a route back into your environment so that your cloud joined PCs, your Azure AD joined PCs, can see internal resources like file servers, applications, or it can just be a completely isolated Azure VNet that just simply has internet access, which is what I have in this configuration. So you can see from here, I basically have my Azure subscription. I have a VNet that has no routing back to on-premises at all, because these are completely cloud joined, Azure AD only, no on-premise activity, connectivity at all. We get a quick overview. We can see that all the various checks meet there. So I've got enough IPs within it. I can talk to the service endpoints. It's all good and ready to use. It's all wizard driven. So basically choose what you want, whether you want to do a hybrid join or Azure AD only, and then just step through the wizard and fill out the various bits of information. Device images is around if you want to create a custom OS image that these cloud PCs will use when they're provisioned. So you basically have to go and create your own. You can sysprep it with all your applications and stuff installed, anything you want to add, and then just upload it to the service where you can then use it as part of your provisioning policies. So your provisioning policies are the thing that ties it all together. So you can see here, I basically just have the one. But this is the configuration set that says basically what type do I want. So I can do Azure AD join again. So obviously I need to have a matching network connectivity for that. Where do I want to deploy it? So I choose somewhere close to us that most of our resources and stuff are in. What image we want to use. So this again goes back to whether you want to use that custom image. Then you select it from that library that you've uploaded, or one that Microsoft have already pre-prepared. So I'm currently using Windows 11 with the Microsoft 365 apps already built into it. Come out of that. Recent preview option, we can now actually choose the language and the region. So previously it was just United States. So I've just updated this recently to choose United Kingdom. And then where do we assign it? So this is the important bit. So you need to have a group that you have your licenses assigned to, and or, so you could do it separately, but we tend to do it combined, where the users are actually going to receive the access to the cloud PCs are granted as well. So within this group at the minute, I only have 4 users in it. So within our cloud PCs, I can see the list of them all, and these are the users that have basically been assigned. So if I want to drop another one into this list, so let's go and choose a licensing group. So you can see under licenses, I have my Windows 365 license assigned to this group, and we have a few members. Let's add in somebody else. There we go. So that might take a second or two to filter through. So if we go back to 365, back to cloud PCs, I'm going to pause the video for a second just to let this catch up in the back end. We should start to see another user, or David, sorry, that I've just added, come through into this list. Right, that's updated. You can see now that we've got the user that I've just assigned. It's now moved into a provisioning state. Obviously there's no device name yet, but that will basically start to commission his cloud PC. So while we're waiting for that to just go through and run and commission, I've got quick links here to the actual objects themselves within Intune. So if I go and have a look at mine. So, for anyone that has used Intune or the Microsoft Endpoint Manager will be familiar with this same look and feel, and it is treated as if it is the same sort of object. However, we get a few more options across the top now. So as well as being called out very specifically that it's device model cloud PC, and that's point to note that all of them are issued with a device model that starts with cloud PC. The end of it will vary depending on what sizing metric that's been done on it. But if you're building your groups, then you want to start thinking about potentially using the beginning part of the device model to be able to build dynamic group rules with, just to identify it away from normal devices if you need to target it. Now we have obviously a couple of options. I'm not going to read them because some of them are completely obviously. I'm not going to tell you what restart does, for example. But here's that restore option that we did earlier. So I have just my basic ones at the moment. So I don't have the 6-hour ones because I've just applied it. But you can see that I can choose to go basically back to a point in time, and it will wipe. Well, it's the same as a virtual machine snapshot, let's be honest. It will go back to that very specific point. So if I had anything locally on that device, I would lose it. Be very cognizant that if it's domain joined, you could run the risk of it having the computer password changed within AD. You roll it back and it will lose its domain trust. The point on the documents, you shouldn't be storing anything, even on a physical device these days, only locally. Using things like OneDrive with no folder move is absolutely the recommended way to go forwards. That way then if the device does die or gets reverted, your documents and your data is stored in OneDrive and will just sink back down again. So make sure that you're just cognizant of, especially if you allow users to do it, they are aware that you do run the risk of data loss if they revert and it's not stored off that device. Resize is just coming through on preview, so if you do have the licensing, you can go through and actually choose to do other sizes within it. Like I say, licensing permitting, so I don't have the licensing within this environment to go higher on this side. If you do, then obviously you can commission more or less. Now, the reprovision option. So if for some reason that machine is broken, so if the users managed to damage it in some way, or an application went on, or heaven forbid a Microsoft update completely destroyed it, yes, you've got the restore one, so you can roll it back in point of time, or you can completely reprovision the environment. So this is in essence the same as deleting the virtual cloud PC and then recommissioning it again from scratch. You'll get the same name, everything else as well. So in this instance, I want to show how it works, so I'm going to reprovision my main desktop. So that's off on its way. If I go back to the main portal side, give that a bit of a refresh, you can see now that mine has also now moved into the provisioning state. So I'm going to pause it at this point again because these can take quite some time to provision, and I'll come back to it when they're finished provisioning. And we're back in the provisioned. So you can see in the console now we basically have the new one that was commissioned for David, and then we've just had mine which has been reprovisioned. So it has changed its name, so we was on Steve B005 before, and we can see all the same sorts of useful information about the actual device, and obviously with it being completely reprovisioned, so that idea of deleted, new object created, we have no restore points now within it. Now obviously this does take across all of the Intune policies and stuff that are assigned to it. So you can see most of these are now being applied. We've got some filters on some things, so like the Wi-Fi account, not applicable because no point trying to apply a Wi-Fi profile to a device or VM that doesn't have a Wi-Fi card in it. But you can see the other settings are there. Now that should mean that I can again go to my connection. So if I go to my remote desktop, no longer have access to this workspace, but you can see this new one is now there. So I should be able to launch it and sign in for the first time. There we go. Now, similarly to the remote desktop, as you've seen in the previous video, you can absolutely go to your apps from Office. Oh, that's my VM just jumping in at the front. Should have the little icon for Windows 365. And again, I get the option to be able to launch in the browser. So this one that's just opening in the background, see, it's got all the policies bits, so it's very similar to the process as if it had gone through an autopilot side, but it doesn't. Keyboard on screen. It will take a little bit longer to log on for the first time, as you would expect any device as a user logs on for the first time. But I hope you found that bit useful, this idea that your Windows 365 environment is monitored as an overview and built using an on-premise network connection, provisioning policy that defines the image that you're going to use, and then the ability to actually see the images, see the cloud PCs, which are managed as normal objects within Intune, the same way you would your physical devices. With that, that's still logging on. I'll leave that for another video. Thank you very much.